Just a decade ago, Facebook was still a bright-eyed newcomer to social media. Today, it has become a behemoth with constant innovation to push up front and opportunities for enhancement that are as big as you can take your users' attention. 2.9 billion people log into Facebook every month. That's a generous slice of the world's population scrolling, liking, sharing, and laughing at memes. But underneath all this lies a sophisticated game that is turning heads, drawing ad dollars away from these companies that used to be faithful Google allies. Ad revenue is the lifeblood that keeps the wheels moving in the tech world. But over the years, there has been a marked variation in advertisers' spending habits. After all, Facebook, with its smartly designed ad platform and an unparalleled level of user data, promises a level of ad targeting that'd leave advertisers in awe. So much so that statistics seem to point to a 20% shift in advertising moolah, which used to be Google's domain. But how did Facebook manage to pull this off? How did it not just survive and beat most contenders successfully in the shadow of the search and ad king, Google, but rise up to directly challenge it? Since Google is so deeply woven into our everyday digital experiences, it's hard to imagine a day without it. So join us as we discover the moves, choices, and events that catapulted Facebook to the forefront in the tech world. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay updated. Here we go. Google was the true big brother of technology. They had plenty of resources. They were flowing with money, people, and users. All the while, Google had gotten into social networking early. Their first site had been launched in January 2004, a few paces before Facebook and decades before Twitter and Instagram could be pointed out on a random street. You would think that Google, the innovator, was always some steps ahead of everyone else, when in fact, it was just the opposite. Take Google Plus, for example. It became one of those rare platforms that failed to do what they wanted it to do, effectively turning into an elephant in the room for Google. From a trending social platform, it turned into a joke or even actively hated. Google Plus got so much bad rep that you could search for Google Plus and find only the most terrible reviews. Why was Google Plus, the world's most powerful company's shot against Facebook's bows, set up to fail immediately? Google Plus is Google's most recent attempt to join the social networking band, which, led by Facebook, has received mostly warm or good vibes for years. With all its brilliant achievements and success in the fast and highly competitive world of tech, there was only one field that Google hadn't coped with: developing a social networking service like Facebook. That's a place where, with the greatest of bad luck, everybody they would try wouldn't meet success. People generally think that Google entered the social media arena way too late. Well, brace yourself, as the reality might just shockingly be fair. Flashback to well before Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter blew in like a storm and took over our screens, way before the innovative, pioneering social platforms MySpace and Bebo exploded into the digital scene. There was something very interesting. It was called Friendster.com. Interestingly enough, this humble site was inspired by the people who started MySpace. Over a year after its establishment in 2002, Google unsettled and vibrated sand in what can be termed as a shock by all when it offered to purchase the social platform Friendster. Google tendered an offer of $30 million for Friendster. Wouldn't that be a very generous offer for a website trying to establish itself in virtual reality? Tempting as that was, the people behind Friendster, the zealous advisors who saw Friendster as potentially the very monarch of the internet, decided to take the high road and stick by their decision to reject Google's offer. Turn the clock back now, and that was less than a prudent decision. So, the search engine Leviathan introduced Orkut to the world as the youngest bear cub in the family of its gray-haired parent. It was, of course, named after him. This was vintage elbow-licking culture that can only be the hallmark of Google. Orkut was established by Bülent Kökten, a software engineer who worked for Google from Turkey. This was done in his 20% allotted free time as an employee at Google. This reflects how the company supports its employees in developing non-official projects. Interestingly enough, Orkut, a social media platform most of you likely even remotely remember, stamped its foot in a foot race against the giant Facebook as they scrambled to stake issues previews of the baby days of social media. Everybody was conforming while on the way to reach the same finish line. Orkut was the first to land in January 2004, an entire month before the later launch of Facebook in February of the same year. It was Orkut. It had become so popular in Brazil that in 2008, however, suddenly, Orkut faced one huge security disaster globally. When secret information, such as incredibly important things like passwords and banking details, got exposed, Orkut breached the trust of all its users. Such an incident was rather obvious, and hence, Orkut would be given a lot of skepticism in usage, which would give a big blow to its popularity. In 2010, Google couldn't have been blamed had it felt a touch of envy towards Facebook. Just about everyone was spending more and more time on Facebook and becoming impossible to ignore, logging in more often and staying longer, and everything is happening faster than it had ever been done for Google. That wasn't the only alarm bell ringing. The way Facebook was selling ads, it looked like it could hit Google where it hurts. You see, Facebook had sussed out a pretty smart way of advertising. The people on Facebook would post all the information about themselves, about what they liked, didn't like, or were interested in, which was golden for advertisers, and they were ready to pay a pretty penny. That is so, especially because while people search for something on Google or Facebook, you can catch up with your ideal customer and present issues they haven't even noticed yet. The rise of the internet and social networking services, such as Facebook and Orkut, have made the situation even more detrimental for Google. Now, Google could sit up and take notice of the threat Facebook poses. In fact, the search engine even realized that it was being given a cold shoulder in the social networking game. It's worth remembering that Google's last crack at social networking, Google Buzz, may have had fewer than 20 people working on it, and Google Plus had more than 1,000. Google meant business this time. They were serious about going out of the way to be that one shadowing Facebook this time. Well, that should give you an idea. Facebook's market capitalization was around $14 billion last year, while Google's was around $200 billion. So Google will undoubtedly be well equipped to compete with Facebook in its own game. It soon became obvious that although the build was thought attractive at first glance, it was instinctually more harmful than good. Google entered the hush-hush launch mode, which nowadays is seen in various companies for their products, where only invitees were allowed. That spurned interest and intrigue initially, but by the time they opened the door for everyone to come, excitement and interest were doused. It turned out that, more than that, this closed-in access was more prohibitive than helpful. The people who received the invites felt like they were in the middle of a ghost town for a social platform. Conversations could be made with their invites only. Unlike many other platforms whose doors are flooded by your friends, Google Plus felt quite lonely due to this invite-only plan. The magic of social media lies in the network effect. The thought that the value of a social platform goes up the more it gets used by people. Anybody who happened to visit Google Plus at the time would find it to be a ghost town, with literally any other service one could think of present on the same deserted platform. So, why would anyone leave their living room, a place they check into daily, to use a virtual ghost town with fewer features and less opportunity for interaction? But those weren't the only issues Google Plus had to face. Google Plus 2011 not only reached out but went further, enforcing its users to go with their full legal names and rejected the notion of a private username. Now, users who tried to go and slip in a pseudonym didn't just have their account suspended. Still, they also created another layer of problems because the Google Plus account was tied to other Google services. Not everyone felt so brilliant about their real username popping up in everything they do under Google. In 2019, Google bid its final farewell to the Google Plus social media platform. All you saved and loved on Google Plus was successfully moved to the respective Google apps. Remember all those photos? They were moved to Google Photos. In one way or another, even quite a few Google Plus features, such as Video Hangouts, have been repositioned as standalone services we're still using. Still, the Google Plus shutdown did not go quietly. It went off like a bomb. Ex-Googler Morgan Knudsen, in his tweet storm, team pulled no punches in signaling out the fact that the Google Plus project and its bosses were far from ideal. Hey, I'm gonna lay it all out here. The Google Plus project and the folks behind it were a cesspool of putting things on fire garbage. His quite earthy admissions of a bait and switch were played on him, promising a role in Chrome only to place him on the Google Plus project. According to him, the teams lacked a unified goal, each working independently on different aspects of the project. Just think about how Google Plus went completely off the rails after 2 years. Relatively soon in Google time after that, Google gave social media another shot with a service that nobody, in all likelihood, recalls: Shoelace. In some sense, it's more chill and focused on connecting the local happenings in a city versus attempting to be all things to all people, a la Google Plus. But like so often, global pandemics abound in many ambitions. Shoelace went the way of many niches and didn't make it past its first year. That had slipped plenty of people's minds altogether. Headlines of Google planning to shut down Shoelace, a social media app many had not even heard about. Another social misstep by Google occurred. In fact, the Google team designed circles with a kind of like-minded bias. Their thought process seemed to have gone more along the lines of features such as circles, suggesting users would absolutely love being organized and setting everything up just as they would want. While many likely owe love to all things tech, many other people simply were out looking for a platform that was already user-friendly. They didn't want to have to get sucked into a setup process. Simplicity rules for most people, as TikTok is shooting into popularity for the very reason that they watch your preferences and then serve you just that. Google Plus simply plied on higher complexities. This is all about Google's tragic decline and Facebook's surprising rise. If you like the video, hit the like button. Until next time.